Ready? Go. All right. I'm Sarah Palmer of the Union County League of Women Voters. We and the Village of Lake Park would like to welcome you here tonight. We're glad you're here and thank you for coming. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization at the national, state, and local levels. Nonpartisan means that as an organization, we do not support any candidate, nor do we support a party, but we do take stands on issues. Members, of course, may support candidates or parties as they wish, but the organization does not. We encourage informed and active participation in government, and we advocate for issues through education. We were founded in 1920, and you know that was a big year. That was the year that women first got the vote, and that's when we were founded by Carrie Chapman Catt, and we've been around ever since. Last year was our centennial, so we're 101 years old now. Since our name is so well recognized, League of Women Voters, we have kept that name all those years, even though we welcome men to be members. And we have a number of them in our local league. In fact, one of them is sitting right there. That's my husband. Candidates will all answer the same question. Questions from the audience may be written on cards. There are cards back there, and there's a pencil there. And pass it to a member of the League of Women Voters. They may be answered or not as time allows. Sometimes those questions are duplicated in something that we already have, but we may answer them as time allows. We ask that you not record this session other than the recording which Lake Park has arranged for us. Now, this is for the candidates. The questions will be timed, your answers will be timed, that is. And I think we've settled on a 1-minute answer, so I will be timing it, and at 45 seconds or thereabouts, I will raise the yellow card. And at the end of a minute, the red card. So at that time, if you'll finish your sentence and go to the next candidate. Thank you. Our moderator tonight is our longtime member, Ms. Amelie Scholl. Ms. Scholl has moderated a number of these forums for us. In fact, I think the last candidate forum that you all had was moderated by Ms. Scholl. I think it was several years ago. Amelie is well-versed in public policy issues as they concern Union County. She has been a candidate herself. She's informed, she's very able, she's a person of superior wisdom and understanding. And of course, she's a great credit to the League of Women Voters of Union County. And so I'll turn it over to Mrs. Scholl.
Thank you, Sarah. Good evening. Sarah, a round of applause for you. Sarah is our fearless leader. When she says go and march, and we follow her, and we follow her red card and her yellow card, and we're told what to do. Anyway, welcome everyone. Lake Park, you guys always turn out, so congratulations. Just for purposes for you all, the recording will be both on the town website as well as the town Facebook page. So that's how it'll be available. You can share it with your constituents or in your campaign as you would see fit. Just to go through some of the guidelines, you're going to be given 1 minute at the opening to introduce yourself and use that minute as you see fit. The questions have been prepared using the typical normal topics: economics, safety, infrastructure. For Lake Park, they've been created by the League of Women Voters. None of the candidates have seen the questions, so they will be first time for everyone. Your responses will be timed, as Sarah said. We may have time for questions from the audience, so if you did get a card on the way in and you go through something and you'd like a question answered, if we have time, we'll certainly address it. Please no personal questions to one particular candidate and no personal attacks. It should be a question that can be answered by everyone. Let's see, you'll be at the end, you'll be given a minute to summarize, which time you can go back and, clarify something that you said or ask for votes, et cetera, and so forth. Topics are, as I said, of general interest. Masks are a requirement when you're speaking. Please lower your mask. I won't be wearing one only because my glasses fog up and then I'll never be able to read the question. So without further ado, so this is how I put everybody's name here. So I will choose a name, and that's how we know who will take the question first, and then we will go through, across this way, and down to the green table. Any questions? Okay. Well, I'm just going to go straight across to start with your introductions, and that would be Mr. John Carlson. So if you'd like to take the minute to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm John Carlson, and thank you all so much that had anything to do with putting this together. I'm sure logistically it was quite a bit to do, and I just, as far as when I'm gauging candidates for whatever office it is, I often think one of the most important things that at least I want to know is what their motivation is. And before I go on, I have to share. This morning I was taking one of my teenage daughters to school, and she looked at me and said, "Dad, don't make a fool of yourself tonight." So I'll try to abide by her encouraging counsel, but. Seriously, I appreciate so much. My motivation for running is just, I love the community. We've lived here close to about 10 years, and it's funny. My mother has lived with me for quite a while, and she sits out on our porch, and people pass by, and it's just any opportunity to serve the community is what motivates me. Thank you.
And next, we'll go on to Mr. Mark Richards.
My name is Mark Richards, and Wendy and I moved here from Colorado about 11 years ago to take care of our elderly parents, and they've since gone to be with the Lord. Wendy and I loved it here so much that we decided to stay with all the amenities here, the people of Lake Park, the clock tower. It's like a little Norman Rockwell place. And so anyhow, we decided to stay, and it's one of the best places we've ever called home. I have a degree in finance from the Ohio State University. Attended the MBA program at the University of Denver, and I got a law degree from Capital University in Columbus, Ohio. We've been realtors for about 20 years. And I've served on the Lake Park Communications Commission, and as well as I have the Lake Park Facebook page, which many of you are members of.
Thank you. Mr. Steve Tudor.
Hi, I'm Steve Tudor, a North Carolina native who grew up in eastern North Carolina. I received my bachelor's degree from George Mason and started my career in Northern Virginia. I transferred to the Triad for several years before moving to Union County in 2008 and ultimately in Lake Park with my family in 2017. Over the years, I've gained valuable leadership experiences through roles in church, charitable organizations, neighborhoods, businesses, and community. Each has prepared me to serve you as a council member. With the projected growth for Union County, we need to be preparing now for the impact on such topics as safety, our financials, infrastructure, aesthetics, the village history, and our future community. As a council member, I will continue to build relationships with our Lake Park neighbors, our HOA boards, our surrounding towns, and Union County. We as residents of Lake Park need to be involved in steering the future of our beloved village. With me, you get old school integrity with a vision for the future.
Mr. Parente.
I am Joseph Parente. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters in Central Church for hosting this tonight, and thank everyone for coming out tonight. I've lived in our village for 10 years. I'm a veteran of military service and spent 40 years in the insurance and financial services industries, retiring in 2019 from TIAA. I volunteered for many HOA and village events over the years, including 4th of July, Veterans Day, Christmas carriage rides, Fall Festival, Movies in the Park, and projects taken on by the Town Home Owners Association. I know how to get things done. I'm a team player, and it's clear to me that to protect our property values, the village needs to move forward beyond just maintaining. The look of our village is really important in saying who we are, and it cries out for more color and creativity. We need better use of our green spaces for seniors, families, and children, improved security, and a better look for the town center area. My campaign sign is simple, but says it all. Elect Joseph Parente as your voice for change. Thank you.
Mr. Wayne Wrench?
First, thank you all for being here, and thanks for everybody who put this all together. So my name's Wayne Wrench, so I hope I'm sitting behind the right card. My wife and I have lived here for about 11 years. We live in Cortland now. Prior to that, we were at Bobby Lane, so we've kind of seen some range of the town. My primary purpose for running is even though we absolutely love this community, you know, it's becoming older and things are looking a little ratty somewhat. Now, in their defense, I would like to say that the council seems to be rather aware of this and actually working very hard on it. But I think it's just something that we need to continue to work at so that, you know, we continue to be the community that we all want to live in.
Mr. David Cleveland?
Good evening. My name is David Cleveland, and I am currently the mayor of the village of Lake Park. My wife, Vicki, and I built our home and moved to the village of Lake Park 17 years ago. I served on the village council for 4 years and have served as your mayor for the past 8 years. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in electrical engineering. After graduating from college, I served as an officer in the U.S. Army at White Sands Missile Range and in Seoul, Korea. I'm now retired from Siemens Automation, and I have the time, the energy, and the passion to devote to community service. Now, this is important. In January, all 5 council members will have 2 years or less of tenure serving on council, while our new council members, who are all here tonight, have served admirably in the last 2 years. I believe that I can provide the leadership and guidance required for this great group of council men and women in order to preserve the unique character of the village and provide direction for the future vision of the village. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but certainly not least, Mr. James Record.
I'm James Record, and I'm running for mayor. My family and I have lived here for 10 years, and we never take for granted this idyllic community. With nearly 30 years' experience in the financial services industry, I've served as chief compliance officer for major corporations, 2 of which were Wachovia and Wells Fargo. But my true passion has always been community service, most of which I saw and learned from my father. As a Greater Boston police officer, Dad walked the beat for 32 years, keeping the local businesses safe. But his true passion came from seeing children safe, local business owners thrive, and to serve and protect our small New England town. Having lost his battle with COVID this year, the town recently renamed their historic town square Records Corners. Community service is in my veins, it's in my blood, but none of that matters because I'm here tonight not just to debate, but to meet and greet every one of you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we will get started with the questions now. I'm going to choose the first name. That person will take this question first, and then we will proceed through, and we will go from there. And the lucky person is Mr. Steve Tudor. First question for the evening. After the most recent property re-eval in Union County, the Village Council voted to drop the per $100 tax rate from 0.25 to 0.19, basically staying revenue neutral. Given that most of the properties have increased in value, do you believe that staying revenue neutral was in the best interest of the village? Why or why not?
Thank you for the first question. I think if you really look at it, revenue neutral would have been 18.1%, not 19%.
Basically.
I'm an accountant, so I have to take a look at that, right? So I think if you look on the average, the tax value overall went up by like 5%. So a 5% increase was what I felt like a good increase this year for inflation and things like that, to try to keep it to the minimal. But with things that are starting to deteriorate or need repairs, we really have to look into that. Do we spend our money a different way? Is there options with the budget? I managed budgets all my whole career. So is there a different way to manage the budget that's currently out there? And what do we have to do around that to make sure we get to the right position?
Maybe I'll say close to revenue neutral. We'll go on to Mr., I'm sorry, are you finished with
Yes,
the
ma'am.
answer? We'll go on to Mr. Parente, same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay. After the most recent property reeval, the village council voted to drop the per 100 tax rate from 0.25 to 0.19, or 0.18.1 would have been revenue neutral. Staying close to revenue neutral, do you believe that this was in the best interest of the village? Why or why not?
Well, I believe with Steve, that 5% increase is very modest, but not only needed, but I think in the near future, it'll be insufficient. We deal in the townhomes with things like property age, utilities, landscaping, vendor costs. All these things are inflating probably at close to 5% now. And I think in years to come, you'll see that bump up at least 2 or 3%, which is only going to mean that there's going to be less money meant for the larger projects that we all want to see completed, including ponds, aesthetics, and sidewalks, and so forth. So that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Wrench, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I got it. I hate to see you struggle through that again. No, I think it's fine to stay as close to revenue neutral as possible. I'm not aware that there's any great funding needs, so if we have enough to do the job, then, you know, the taxpayers should not have to pay extra.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Caldwell, I'm sorry, Mr. Cleveland?
Thank you. I think the increase was a modest increase, but was adequate. During the last 4 years, we've had a 4% increase one year. We had a 4% increase in another year, and a 5% increase this year. So just in the last 4 years, we've had basically a 13% increase in the taxes. I would hope towards the future, the next year or two, that we don't have to raise taxes. I can see where we had to do it this last year because we anticipate some of our contracts coming up for renewal, and we certainly expect that there will be increases in, like, waste collection, probably our maintenance contracts for the lawn and landscaping, as well as salary increases. So I think it was a fair increase and should cover us for another year or two. Thank you.
Mr. Carlson?
Thank you for the question. My answer to that would be yes, but with a caveat. I manage a team for Wells Fargo, a technology team, and often in my area, you know, technology, there's so many things changing so quickly that you make plans and then something changes that you don't have any control over. And so I think the goal should always be to, you know, at least try to be revenue neutral. I mean, if something increases somewhere, I mean, the laws of economics, right? We can't control there's costs and things that go up that, we just can't control. So when some of those things happen, the goal should be look, we have to look out for the taxpayers. There's a lot of struggling families, especially with COVID and, you know, people out of work. So, you know, the goal is to try to be revenue neutral. And at least if you do have to increase, you know, expenditures one place, you know, look for other ways to cut. This is what families have to do all the time. They, you know, if a spouse loses a job, they have to find ways to cut expenditures in their, you know, in their family. So, that's what always be on the lookout for the, you know, for the taxpayer and the town. Thank you.
Mr. Record?
Thank you. As others have said, that yes, the raise was adequate. We need to look at this, on council, we needed to look at what's going on, what the town has happening. As David mentioned, what contracts are coming up for renewal, knowing things are going to be increased, And also, we didn't want to put a burden onto our residents at all. Having that slight modest increase did produce, did increase our revenue, but we're also taking care of 13 ponds, 12 neighborhoods, 15 miles of road. There's a lot of infrastructure that we are taking care of. Waste collection, landscaping, the sheriffs, they all cost money, and we do have to increase. Yes, we've had 3 increases, and hopefully we won't have for a couple of years, but as things progress, time will tell. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The lucky person answering the next question as they all look at me. Mr. Parenti. Oh, I apologize. You know what, you're right.
No problem.
Thank you. My apologies.
No problem. 60 acres of, Lake Park has 60-plus acres of common areas, and that's a large responsibility for the village council. Maintenance is a never-ending issue. We have to maintain the buildings, the structures, the amenities, all that we have, and we can't fix everything all at once. The budget that the village has is difficult to address the total issue right away, and I believe that we need to stay as fairly revenue neutral or tax neutral that we can. Everything goes up in prices, so it's inevitable it's going to go up somewhat. So if we can keep any increases to a minimum, that would be fantastic. We need to earmark certain monies now to be used on future things that we want to prioritize. So a 3 to 5 year plan would be good in that. And for instance, like say if we have something that costs $15,000 3 years from now, we earmark $5,000 a year for the 3 years so that we have the money available when we do it. So basically it's make a goal and a date and to budget for it accordingly.
Okay. Ms. Parente, you have the first question. For the second question. Staying with taxes and economics a little bit. Current ratio of commercial to residential taxes in the village is estimated to be about 85% residential and 15% commercial. Much research shows that a healthy ratio is 60% commercial to 40% residential in order to provide the infrastructure and needs of any given municipality. How do you see the village getting closer to this ideal ratio, and what would be your plan?
Well, thank you for the question, and I will say this, that since I've lived at Lake Park, I've always struggled with the tension that there seems to be between town center and the administration here. I think one of the things I like to see happen is a much better relationship with the owners of town center, so that we have a little more input and can maybe lend help in getting the right types of businesses to fill up those spaces. We also have some land that we have that is owned by other parties, that is down Faith Church Road, that we maybe should reach out to and find out in advance if they have any ideas on creating a commercial venture that might be able to aid us in writing that lopsided, that ratio. Thank you.
Mr. Wrench?
Well, I think we're somewhat limited in what we're even able to do because we don't have a lot of properties that are committed to commercial use now, and so we are kind of limited to the properties that are in the town that have not been developed. So, you know, other than trying to bring some develop in there, I mean, there's not a whole lot more you're going to get into the downtown center business area.
Mr. Record?
Well, it would be very hard to get to 60% commercial when 67% of ours is currently residential. So there is, as another colleague had said, that we do have our town center. It is not fully developed. It is hard to keep businesses in there and sustainable. We've had surveys that said, you know, 25% of the residents go up there frequently, 40+% go up there infrequently, and it goes down from there. So it's how do you get the businesses that are here to be sustainable to continue, and two, to develop, get the undeveloped land developed, to help build that. We do have one section is out there on Faith Church Road that is up for consideration of some things, but if that stays commercial or moves to residential, the future will tell us. Thank you.
Mr. Cleveland?
Thank you. The Village of Lake Park is a planned urban development, and it is a unique community. So it's probably unfair to compare it to the averages across other municipalities and across the state. So just to try and attain a 60-40% distribution in taxes is really unrealistic because of the nature of our community. And I think most of the people that come to Lake Park, to live in Lake Park, like the mix of residential to business, although we do get a lot of requests to try and increase the downtown, especially get more cafes and places where people could perhaps go get a bite to eat. But I don't think it's realistic to ever expect that we'll ever reach a 60-40 or probably ever come close to it. Thank you.
Mr. Carlson?
Well, thank you for the question. That's, it makes me think of, I've always, in business, you just kind of learn, you can only deal with what you have. I mean, you can't, so with this kind of, we don't have a lot of undeveloped or land to tap into for commercial use. I certainly agree with the comments that have been said, but with that, yeah, some of those goals like that would be unrealistic, but at least we could, do things to promote and increase, what we do have down in that downtown area with, considering it's privately owned. I mean, there is limited, limited ability for us to be able to do anything as a town as far as officially, but just meaning from a government standpoint, but certainly we can do things to help promote the businesses. I mean, just some marketing, when town events come up, I mean, a lot of, a little bit of advertising and marketing can go a long way to promote the businesses that are there, and the undeveloped land that they mentioned. I would certainly be in favor of looking at options for it to tap into more, commercial revenue. So, thank you.
Mr. Richards?
As far as what David, the mayor, said about it being a planned unit development, it's going to be really difficult because we just don't have that extra land in order to make it more commercialized. And I don't think the community would actually want it more commercialized than it already is. So I don't think that the 60-40 ratio is workable. What Joe Parenti said, that there's some property on Faith Church that might be at stake there. But anyhow, I think the main thing is we have current businesses in Lake Park, and we have businesses that could move to Lake Park if there's vacancies or whatnot. So I think it comes down to that the businesses in Lake Park need to advertise a little bit more. I went onto their websites, and I went on to different places, let's say for What's Up Indian Trail, which has 22,000 members on it, and the Mexican restaurant, Corey's Cakes, and the Lake Park Cafe. They did very little advertising other than their own websites and stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that we can do to increase that on social media and whatnot.
Mr. Tudor?
So it's good to go last sometimes, and sometimes it's not great, because a lot of things that have been said are things I totally agree on. We have to support the local businesses. And as Jim has said, we here are not supporting local businesses. Only 26% frequently visit those businesses. 18% rarely visit them, and 7% never visit them. So, I mean, we've got to be supportive of that, if that's what we want. I agree, we're never going to get to the 60-40 split. It's just not possible. We do have some vacant land. There's vacant land in the town center, determining and working with the people that own that to get it developed. Also, work with businesses there. Help them advertise. Help them get out and get known. When Lake Park was developed, I guess if you had the businesses sort of on the outside on the main road, it would make it easier for people to see it and things, but they're built inside. It's like a little community. I love sitting in my window looking out at the coffee place or, you know, whatever I can see out of there. But we as a community have to support them, and we, you know, have HOA events there. Have the Christmas event back in the village versus, you know, at the town center. I think it's a lot of opportunities to do a lot of different things.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Carlson, you're first for the next one. Moving on to safety. The village currently contracts with the Union County Sheriff Union County Sheriff, for 2 officers to help ensure the safety of our residents and community as a whole. Do you feel that or believe that 2 officers are sufficient? If not, what is your vision?
Yes, I do. And it's one of my hobbies or passions. I ride my bike a lot around the community, and some of you maybe you know seen. And you know, it's funny when I ride around, I meet a lot of people, and I see the officers out patrolling often. And I tell you, as far as you know, you look at what I'm always asking, you know, what is the role? You know, what are the true roles of government? I mean, I believe in limited government, and certainly one of the most important things with government is to protect citizens and property. So, you know, it absolutely, you know, be for keeping, you know, our officers, you know, our dedicated police. And yes, I mean, for the vision right now, I would say just, I know some crime does happen occasionally, and I would be for, you know, forming some kind of, you know, just kind of a small citizens awareness group like some of the communities have, you know, just something where, I mean, just something kind of basic, but, you know, just some monitoring among people that, you know, we trade off can go a long way. But yes, I absolutely endorse our dedicated police officers.
Mr. Richards?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Sure. The village currently contracts with the Union County Sheriff for 2 officers to help ensure safety of your residents and community as a whole. Do you believe that 2 officers are sufficient? If not, what is your vision?
We are covered 24/7, 365 by the Union County Sheriff's Office, which includes, as you mentioned, the 2 full-time officers assigned to Lake Park during the peak hours. How many neighborhoods do any of you know where they have 2 dedicated police officers to their neighborhood? It's generally just left up to the general Union County Sheriff's Office. Sufficient street lighting is a very important part of the safety, our safety. Speeding and running stop signs are an issue, as it is everywhere. Perhaps more citations by the Union County Sheriff's Office. Keeping our sidewalks in repair, including the trip hazards. Vandalism and such is all over, but I believe Lake Park is a safe community. Perhaps start a neighborhood watch program, and always, if you see something, say something. We also get safety reports at the council meetings. And there has been a lot of discussion about whether we need 24-hour protection in Lake Park with hiring more police officers. I do not believe that we do. It would cost too much money with very little of additional benefits. When car break-ins occur, they will happen elsewhere as well. The response time from Union County Sheriff's Office is quick enough.
Mr. Tudor?
Sure, thank you for the question. I think if you really look at our budget, it's our second largest expense right now. It's about 17% of what our budget is. I think it is sufficient, because you're right. It's not just 2 officers. It's a whole police force we get backed by. Those 2 officers are just dedicated here. What I'd like to see is a community watch program put together by communities, maybe by, I think we got a quadrum set up for certain things, have a leader in those 4 quadrums that have people that work with them. I mean, I go out all times of the night or mornings, and you always see people out walking. You always see people out having conversations and different things. So people are out noticing. So just keep your eyes peeled to things. The other thing, I think, we're living in a modern world. Put cameras up. Let's have cameras at the significant locations. You know, we have cameras around where the pool's at. Do we have cameras in the gazebo? Where do we have cameras, and where we don't, let's add those cameras in. I think that's a cheaper way to monitor that and a better way to get quicker results.
Mr. Parente?
Yes. Thank you, Steve and Mark. You've done a great job on that question. I agree with everything that these guys said. I would add, I think cameras is a really good idea. And I believe that in addition to the camera, you need notices that say, smile, you're on camera. Signs and cameras will deter a lot of petty crime. It also will identify the people that don't belong in the neighborhood that are repeat offenders. I think if we had cameras in certain vantage points, you could see all the way down some of our main streets. And if it's the right resolution, if the council spent the right money, you could grab a license plate or a face recognition if you had to. I think we have enough money invested in offices. You're right, Mark. I think a neighborhood watch is a great idea because my best source of information on security is Joe Brown, my neighbor in the alley behind me. If anyone is back there that doesn't belong there, I get a call right away, and I really appreciate that. So I agree with these gentlemen. Thank you.
Mr. Wrench?
Well, I was going to say ditto. In terms of the police, yeah, I mean, or the sheriff's department, I think the 2 is enough. I'm not, and I don't know, so I'm telling you that right off the bat, what all hours our dedicated sheriffs are here. I know I see them a lot during the day, and not as much at night. And if it's possible, maybe we need to commit more time to those hours. You know, the camera thing to me, yeah, it probably would be a good idea at places like the pool and some of the other places, but I wouldn't want too many of them because that gets a little too 1984 for my blood. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Record?
So yes, I believe having 2 sheriffs is adequate here. As Mark was saying, we do have 24/7, 365 coverage with the sheriff's department, and when we do not have those 2 sheriffs in the town, our response time is 5 to 7 minutes from the sheriff's office. So we are covered very well with the sheriff's department. We've talked about cameras, you heard signs, cameras. We've had discussions about cameras. That is a very expensive proposition to install. But one thing that is not that expensive and is an app. If Lake Park developed an app, there are companies out there that have apps that connect to the fire, the police, and you can report stuff right through the app, which could be part of the community watch. So that is something, an avenue that we should be talking to and working on for happening, which is your community involvement.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Mr. Cleveland?
Thank you. I'm going to get a red card on this because I could talk for a half hour on this, but I do believe that our 2 officers are adequate because they are supported not only by surrounding communities such as Indian Trail and their officers, but also the general patrol officers for the Union County Sheriff's Office. In the last 5 to 10 years, I have had reason to call 911 3 times, and not for things going on at my home, but in all cases, the response from the sheriff's office was very, very quick. One time, before I could even get off the phone with the 911 operator, there were 2 Indian Trail Sheriff's patrol cars that came up. So I think we get very good coverage, very good bang for our buck, and really appreciate everything that the sheriff's office does for our community. Thank you.
And thank you. I caught everybody this time, yes, okay. Going on to the next question. Mr. Richards. So do you believe that the current infrastructure of the village is adequate, updated, and modern enough to best serve its residents, both current and future? If not, how do you propose to change, fix, or upgrade?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Do you believe that the current infrastructure of the village is adequate and updated or modern enough to best serve both its current residents and future needs? If you don't feel this way, how do you propose to fix this?
As I said earlier, we have 60 plus acres of common area, which is a large responsibility for the village, and maintenance is a never-ending issue. We have to maintain all these different infrastructure, the buildings, the structures, the amenities, and all that we have. And once again, we can't fix everything all at once, and we need to do that earmarking, the 3 to 5 year plan, as I had said earlier. We need to do continuing maintenance and repair of our miles of sidewalks, ponds, lakes, buildings, and all that, and safety as well is included in that. The current amenities that we have now, I think, are basically sufficient for Lake Park, but it does take maintenance to keep them going.
Mr. Tudor?
Sure. I think Mark said a lot there, and I agree with it. I think we need where I differ a little bit is we need a different plan. We need a short-term plan and a long-term plan. And it's got to be funds marked for both sides of those. And I think what we have to do is we have to look at those projects that need to happen right away, like lifted sidewalks where people could trip from hazard, crosswalks, we need to repaint the crosswalks. We need better crosswalk marking out on the main drive out there, Faith Church Road. We need better visibility out there. And I think we got some roads that are starting to take some wear and tear that need to be repaired. So I think we have to what we have to do is develop a plan, a budget plan, and earmark money for, like I said, a short-term versus long-term, and focus on both of those areas.
Mr. Parente?
Thank you. I think one of the points that draws people to Lake Park are the ponds. And I think they're in desperate need of an overhaul for a couple of reasons. It's very technical, and I'm not going to go into all that, but I think the ponds is a big area that needs to be factored in a greater way in the budget. I think the sidewalks are still not safe to walk, especially at night. Some of them are angled in a way that really can turn your ankle or hurt your hips. There are still many raised sections. A lot of areas where there are pavers are not safe as well. And I think these things are being addressed slowly, but people are walking every day and getting injured every day. My wife and I walk a lot, and sometimes I'd rather ride my bike, like John does, because it's safer than walking. So thank you for the question.
Mr. Wrench?
I guess I'm pretty much in agreement with everybody else. I would say that, as a general rule, I would describe our infrastructure as adequate. We certainly have a great deal of sidewalk issues, and I've attended a few meetings, and I think our council is very aware of this, and part of our problem is it's just so costly to do a lot of the repairs. And so when we speak to the fact that it's taking time, yes, it is, but it is being addressed. I would also agree that seems like many of the roads are showing a lot of wear, and my rough understanding is, and don't 100% quote me on this, but I believe our budget is such that we can only replace about 1 mile of roads per year, and we have 15 to 16 miles of roads that need replaced. So, at some point, I'm not sure roads are going to last 16 years. Thank you.
Mr. Record?
Thank you. Yes, I believe our infrastructure is adequate. Infrastructure being sidewalks, streets, stormwater, the ponds. We have a program in place that was established a few years ago to address sidewalks, and we have one of our duties is being on council. One of the council members is responsible for streets and sidewalks, going around, looking at them. And yes, we are resurfacing streets, and our budget only allows for so much per year. So is it adequate? Yes. Is it ideal? No. We need to figure out, the other question comes in when you talked about taxes. Do you want to increase taxes a lot to take care of this? No. You want to keep things down and slowly work on these, and that's what we have been doing. Thank you.
Mr. Cleveland?
Thank you. We're fortunate that Union County Public Works takes care of our water and sewer, so we don't have to worry about that as far as infrastructure. but we do have responsibility to maintain our streets, sidewalks, and stormwater system, including the ponds. Some people question, why don't we do more paving on the streets? And I ran some numbers that if we wanted to do a complete grind and repaving of a 1 mile of street, it would cost $400,000. We get about $90,000 a year from the state in Powell bill funds for paving our streets. So you can see that we have to work on the worst sections at a time. We are in a program, and we've got precision safe sidewalks coming out in a couple weeks to do some more trip hazard repair within the village. And we are in the process, we are receiving bids right now to do shoreline renovation of Normandy Pond, and we have just completed this year Lake Charles, and previously did the front entrance pond. So we have to be fiscally responsible and use our funds wisely on all of these. Thank you.
And Mr. Carlson?
That's a good question. And I tell you, my thought is, I would tend to say yes. I've done a lot of research, looking at the budget and, how money is spent now. I've had extensive conversations with Mayor Cleveland, which I really appreciate his time to just educate myself on, how things, what the priorities are right now, and just to get, some idea of his vast experience. But I feel like I would have to have just some, quite a bit more information to really, looking at some hardcore cost on, some of these gentlemen here. It sounds like they've dealt with some of these things a little more than, I'm just not sure. Obviously, my priorities would certainly be safety first, with the police, and then, directly behind that would be infrastructure maintenance. I mean, you have to, infrastructure is one of those things, you've got to deal with it. If you don't, it's often going to be far more expensive, down the road than to deal with something now. So, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Next one up in the batter's box, Mr. Record. So I want everybody to put on their imagination caps and their dream caps. And if you could do what you wanted, or you had very little pushback, what would be your vision for Lake Park in 5 years? Tell us what it would look and feel like.
Well, that's an open question. Okay. So.
It's meant to be that way.
So we'll start with Parks and Rec. There's a lot of, as Mark had mentioned earlier, we have 60 acres, we have 13 ponds, 15 miles of road. All of that would be pristine. That would be a vision of having this, having a better communication and more community service going on with different events happening. That would be what I would say is be a vision of there, and not having to worry about any money would be a wonderful thing.
And Mr. Cleveland?
If money was no object, there's a lot of things we could do to improve the community. And I think Mr. Record hit on some of those. We'd love to have a thriving downtown area. We like to be able to sponsor more community events. I think what the HOA did this summer with the meals or the food trucks on Friday night was great. It brought people out, and they combined that with entertainment. And it was great to see people come out and get together and meet each other. And so that was great. It'd be nice to continue that thing as well. The other thing that, if money was no object, would love to be able to get a Trader Joe's out here. So, thank you very much.
You can always ask. Mr. Carlson?
My first thing would be, I'm a people person. I love these big social events, and it would be honestly having something, similar to the magnitude of like our fall festival multiple times a year. I think there's, COVID, I think, has really taught a lot of people that, all this limitations on visiting and meeting with families, and just, I think it's just been devastating to people's mental health. And I love when, when we have these fall festivals and things like that. It's fantastic. What a great, you know, something like that was, if we could do things of, you know, that magnitude several times a year. And I would love to have a bigger community center where, you know, you've got some, you know, fitness equipment and ping pong tables. And my mother-in-law lives in the Villages in Florida, and we go to these, they've got these incredible, you know, community centers. But I mean, just some things like that where, you know, people come together and have fun and enjoy each other. Thank you.
Mr. Richards?
I vision Lake Park where the infrastructure is in top-notch shape. The town center is full and vibrant with the businesses that are operating there. And I agree with John about the community center, if you could have that where it's a little more elaborate, bring people to the, give them, you know, fun things to do. The events in Lake Park are wonderful. The town is responsible for the Memorial Day ceremony, the 4th of July celebration, and National Night Out, and those all have been extremely successful events. A lot of the other events that the HOA does as well have been very successful. The communications part of it, getting more people involved in our community to come to the meetings like this, come to the council meetings and the HOA meetings would make a big difference, because when you go to these meetings, you understand how the decision was actually reached, whether, you know, the pros and the cons of it. If you just walk it down the street and you hear the decision, what was made, you just don't know what goes into it. So it really makes a difference to get involved.
Mr. Tudor?
So I think where I would start, you know, would have the perfect world, right? We'd have the best infrastructure you could have. The ponds would be full of fish, and we wouldn't have fish kills. I like to fish, my wife likes to fish, so we enjoy that. Increased landscape. Have it synced all through the community. The landscape looks the same on this corner and is somewhat similar on this corner. I think that's key. The commercial buildings, you know, I'd finish out the commercial buildings if we can, a bigger community center like was said over here, and, you know, having people involved. You know, promote the pool. Have the pool where it's actually standing on its own, that it's actually making money. Promote fishing. Have some competitions for our young folks. It's nothing like teaching a kid to fish. Promote our tennis and basketball courts. Have activities out there. Set up morning out for families. You know, get the kids out. We got a nice picnic area. I seldomly see anybody out there at it. Have more picnics. Have more 4th of July events on different, you know, months or different days for some reason. But I think that the big piece of it is again, attract something like a county library or something that'll make this a destination place where people would come in.
Mr. Parente?
Yes, if you look around at the population in Lake Park, you'll know that 5 years from now, we're going to have a lot more teenagers, and we're going to have a lot more senior people if everyone stays in town. And those are the two groups, I think, that are hurting, really, for places to call their own, teenagers and seniors. We need senior activity areas, outdoors and indoors. We need several of them. We need activities, sponsored activities, scholastics, sports events, things that draw school-age kids and teenagers, to give them something to do instead of riding around on scooters and just hanging out at the gazebo. I think we just really have to get busy about organizing some activities for our community. And I think people will love it, and it will serve everyone. Thank you.
Mr. Wrench?
Okay, so that will solve all of our problems. We won't have any bad roads, no bad sidewalks. Okay, that's all good. A new community center, I could see that, something a little larger in some of the facilities that these folks are talking about. And more events, like, you know, in my perfect world, I'll just flat out tell you this, we would have, you know, like the big screen TV set up in the park every Saturday when the Buckeyes are on, and maybe a beer truck, all right? But, so, I mean, it's all kind of pie in the sky, so it doesn't really matter, but yes, it would be nice if we had a thriving downtown and, you know, but this world isn't gonna be that world.
And Mr. Cleveland? I already answered. Oh, yes, you're right, you did, Mr. Record, I'm sorry. You already answered? Yes? Yes?
Yeah.
Have we made
Carry
our
on.
way around now?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay. I was intrigued by your answers, and interestingly, a lot of your answers don't require any money. If you go back and think about what many of you said, it's community building, it's civic engagement, and that is what tonight is about. And again, I applaud the town of Lake Park the Village of Lake Park for everyone coming out. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to let you guys wrap it up. So, Mr. Wrench, you're first. Day one, if you're elected, what's your first priority?
Well, I'm going to have to learn an awful lot. So, since I started running, I've been, reviewing a lot of the documents that are available and such online. But, excuse me, it's just getting a grip on the actual nuts and bolts of everything. It's just going to be sit down and tap everybody's brain and see what I can gather for information as quick as possible.
Mr. Record?
First priority, if I'm elected, well, it's to get more people to come to our meetings is number one, which means communications, which means getting the government up to a standard where we can communicate, get out better. As we have, our communication is basically with an email blast, a Facebook, and the village newsletter. If we go down the road of a app on a cell phone, information can get out to people much more. The millennials in this demographic, the millennials are going to be strong. In 2025, they're going to be 40+% of the workforce. They're out there, everyone has a phone, and getting the communications out of what's going on in the town, what's happening, will be much better and have more community involvement. Thank you.
Mr. Cleveland?
Well, on day one, I'm going to continue the work that I've been doing for the past 12 years. Going to work with the existing council and staff, and hopefully work with the new members to our council to establish priorities for the village, look at the direction that the town wants to go. I think an interesting thing from the comprehensive plan survey that was recently taken, 67% of the respondents rated their overall quality of life experience in Lake Park as high. Only 1% rated it low. So I think people are quite satisfied with the direction that the town is going, and they don't look for a radical change. And so I hope to work with the council, the staff, to continue these programs and look for new ways we can enhance the life in Lake Park. Thank you.
Mr. Carlson?
It would be listen. It would be, I work in technology and things happen all the time that we have to learn new things. And, I've kind of learned in my older years here that probably sometimes the best thing you can do is shut up and listen and get the feedback from those around me that are more experienced and assess and I would just kind of go on I think that first month or so, I would just be in a big fact finding, I've done a lot of research so far, but, I would just continue to do that, to learn and just figure out, hey, with safety being the top priority and infrastructure and some of these social gathering things that I think I would like to put some priority on, just how would be the best way to go about that? What would be the best plans, and work with my, work with the rest of the council to determine priorities and go from there. So listen.
Mr. Richards?
My number one thing is the communication participation of the residents and all the meetings and whatnot, what I said earlier. We should continue to also do that. Our biggest challenge also is to maintain the infrastructure as it is and to make it better. Community involvement, getting residents more involved in events and meetings through communication efforts. The more involvement, the more they feel welcome and the more sense of community. Also, I think that a thing important is with regard to communication as well, is perhaps a welcome package to new residents for anyone who asks for it, with contact information about the different contact people for the village, as well as the HOA, a link to the village and HOA websites, a link to the e-blast page. I get most of my information off the e-blast email and off the Villager in order to do my post on the Lake Park Facebook page in order to keep everybody posted.
Mr. Tudor?
Well, day one, I would get up, I'd have my devotional like I usually do with my cup of coffee, and then I'd get out on my journey. You know, since COVID hit, I've walked more than over 3,000 miles in this neighborhood, and that's specifically in this neighborhood. Now, I've gotten to know a lot of wonderful folks, and I've got a lot of wise counsel in those walks with a lot of different people. So I'd get out and continue that, because just like John said, it's critical to understand what our residents want and what they want to see. You know, I just have those conversations, and you gain so much knowledge. You know, I've thought about this a couple of times. The first thing I'd start to have hold talks with Tudor. You know, set up talks with Tudor in the park or wherever we can do it at, and have people come out and just tell us what they want and what they want to see. I mean, the best representative I could be is to support the people that have me in there that actually hire me to do the job. That's why I do day one.
Mr. Parente?
Well, day one, I would probably bring the current mayor coffee. You know, I go to church here at Central, and we're a Bible church. And one of the scriptures says that even a fool seems wise when he keeps his mouth shut. So I probably wouldn't say a whole lot. But what I would do, you see, the council is set up by with specific responsibilities that each member has. What I would probably do is seek out the current and maybe the past two people that had that post that I'm supposed to fill, and just sit with them. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to go against something that I know I'm not going to be able to change or alter. But I would sit and have a conversation or two and find out the best way to approach not only the position, but just being on the council in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cleveland, for wrap-up, I am going to start with you, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters for moderating tonight's forum. I would also like to thank all the candidates who participated in tonight's event, and to all the residents that attended this evening, and to all those that will be watching it virtually. Leadership, experience, accomplishments. These are the attributes that I bring to the position of mayor. It is impossible to list all these attributes in a 1-minute closing statement. So I encourage you to visit my website, lakeparkmayor.com, to learn more about me and where I stand on issues that are important to our community. Again, that is lakeparkmayor.com. In closing, I would like to read an endorsement statement by former Mayor John Ross. Quote, I am honored to endorse Mayor Cleveland for re-election as mayor of the village of Lake Park. Our village has been well served with his honesty, integrity, and his vision as mayor over the last 8 years. I am confident our village will be well served with his leadership in the years to come. Unquote. Thank you very much.
Mr. Record, as you're running for mayor as well, we'll allow you to do yours now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. As a rising lieutenant with the fire department, I wondered from time to time why most weren't paid. For a town incorporated in 1669, why were essential services like police, fire, and rescue staffed by more volunteers than employees? While studying economics at Northeastern University, I soon learned that volunteerism is the cornerstone of city planning. Economies are driven by goods and services, society by the noble men and women, each quilting a patchwork of culture. The American Red Cross and the Underground Railroad were just volunteer-based organizations stitching the fabric of America. As an altar boy, we learned about City Upon a Hill and how America was the beacon of hope for the world. As your councilman, I saw for myself how a community evolves into a culture. As the holidays approach, let's remember that peace comes from having a neighbor at hand, but joy comes from the community we serve and share. I'm James Record, and as your mayor, I will stand watch over this idyllic community, our small corner of the world, this shining city on the hill. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson?
I feel like I have the, the analytical ability, to be in a position like this and make wise decisions. I would certainly promise to practice, fiscal common sense and, address things as, obviously today there may be, in the future something comes up we just don't have to deal with now, and approach those from a commonsensical, logical manner. But, one thing I have to share, when I was in college, I studied abroad and I lived in Russia extensively, and I toured throughout all the former Soviet bloc countries in Eastern Europe. And I lived in places where freedom was not only limited, but a lot of times almost non-existent. And these families I lived with, it was just almost unbelievable what, the things that I learned, and I was just kind of a naive Southern kid. But, when I came home, I tell you, it just affected me in so many ways to realize freedom is pretty awesome, and freedom is not free. And I think that, just being able to serve in a local capacity like this is what keeps our government transparent and honest. And I'm passionate about this kind of thing. So, just God bless America and Lake Park. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Richards?
I'm passionate about the Lake Park community and all the people here. I've been admin on the Lake Park Facebook page for 4+ years, and on the Communications Commission. I've attended a number of the Council, Parks and Recreation Commission meetings, Communication Commission meetings, and HOA meetings to keep abreast of what's happening in Lake Park. And I have enjoyed keeping you up to date on that. As a matter of fact, yesterday, this is kind of funny, I got a message from some lady, a mother in Lake Park, who was running late. I had never talked to her before, and she was running late coming back from Huntersville, and it was raining up there in that area. And she contacted me, wanted me to pick up her son at the Lake Park, at the place up at the corner of the daycare center. And it's like, and she was serious. So I went down there to pick up her son, and he was there, and the lady was there, very nice. And she said, you can't take him. She did call that you could take him, because she said she's the only one that she trusted in Lake Park. So anyhow, it turned out I talked to her real nice, saying your mom's on the way. It's raining heavy. She's driving slow, and you be a good boy, and da-da-da-da. So anyhow, thank you.
Mr. Tudor?
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women's Voters, and thanks to all of you for coming tonight. Since July the 1st, I've attended over 25 village-related meetings. I reviewed the 3 years of agendas, meeting minutes, budgets, the comprehensive land use plan, the ordinances, and gained wisdom from a number of you neighbors through many walks. This knowledge has prepared me to be ready to begin this opportunity. I've gained a lot of experience in training in contract agreements, making budgets, negotiation, relationship building, and making difficult decisions. My platform, I feel like, is a key success for our village. Transparency and communication with our neighbors. Safety is an issue. Financial accountability is an issue. History of our village, it's an issue. And community involvement has got to be key for us. As a neighbor serving neighbors, I will always be your voice on topics and issues that arise in the village that we call home.
Mr. Parente?
Yes. The people you elect to village council will propose and vote on everything that happens around you here at the village. It's our tax dollars and our property value that's at stake. We have a great heritage and strong foundation to move forward with, but we can't function tomorrow like we do today. Lake Park's appearance, infrastructure, and ability to communicate to residents needs updating now. I would like to explore the following. Number one, several activity centers for seniors. Number 2, more use of green space for youth activities like organized sports and sponsored events. 3, an improved relationship with the town center owners and a better look for that area. 4, creating information sharing platforms that pull in young families and school-aged children, building a greater sense of caring and community. And 5, employ smart ways to increase security and crime reporting. Please vote, get others to get out and vote, and elect Joseph Parenti, your voice for change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wrench.
Well, thank you all for coming, and thanks you folks for putting this on. One of the things that kind of got glossed over, which I guess it's not shocking, but Lake Park, the village, does have a very good comprehensive plan, which you can find on their website. That kind of breaks down, the community, what is and what people want and whatnot. And if you look at it, it is indeed a comprehensive plan, and appears to be a very good plan, and something that, if elected, it's something that I would expect to work hard, because believe me, I know from what little I've seen, your councilmen in this town work hard. They do. They're a very hands-on council. But, that would, I think if we implement that successfully, and like I say, you can all find it, review it, that we can move the town forward. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you all for coming, the candidates this evening. I know firsthand that it takes a lot to throw your hat in the ring, and so I want to thank each one of you. I think the rest of Union County could take a lesson from Lake Park and seeing the number of candidates that have showed up, and I hope it's a tough but fair election. Thank you to all the Lake Park residents who showed up, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I just want to remind everybody, early voting starts October 14th. You'll be able to vote from the 14th through the 30th at the main library down in Monroe, Monday through Friday from 8 to 6, Saturday on the 30th from 8 to 3. Decisions are made by those who show up, so please get out and vote. Thanks very much for coming this evening. Thank you, everybody.